Hey, what's up, everyone? Hope you've all been doing well. I've been pretty chill, vibing even. You vibing? Well, glad to hear, because that's what I wanted to talk about in this video. Vibes in music is an insanely subjective thing. Every little niche element in music has its own dedicated community of creators and enjoyers, and it seems that just about any fragment of emotion or thought can be transformed into a 40-minute playlist. As a more classical musician, I always thought vibes has vibraphone parts, but after transforming into a proper bro of culture in college, I now use it as a way to describe, well, like it's almost like this air your work creates for those who enjoy it. Or you can just put the word core after any other word. So let's talk about how you can set the scene, if you will, and create more atmosphere in your music. So, like I said, how you interpret music is especially unique to you. Everyone's gonna see a different music video in their head while listening to something, unless it already has some kind of visual or imaginary context given to it. For example, most people in the comment sections I've noticed of movie soundtracks are usually talking about the song's scenes and all the influences it had, whereas music created independent of a visual will have a comment section full of people talking about their epic walk to work while jamming to boss music or relaxing and getting lost in their thoughts to some niche element of chill music. Which, honestly, same bro. But all of that can be summarized as the vibes. So with that being said, here are some ways I dial in the vibes, which are kind of exclusive to how my brain works, but to those who also make music, maybe you'll have a similar vision and you can sort of use what I'm saying and apply it to your own stuff. The first song I'm writing in the background here is a recent one. I had drawn the art first for this, and I pictured my character underwater with his hammer and some swirling lines. Okay, cool. So it's an underwater song. So right away for me, there's two directions I can take the vibes. I always see, and yes, I say see, underwater music in two forms. That really ambient, beautiful stuff that makes you feel like you're surrounded by water. You know, like you're a part of the world, so you don't really feel the water around you. This is what the concept of underwater sounds like to many, I'm assuming. I associate this sound with lots of pads, echoing piano, and calm winds like clarinet and ocarina. The other direction I take it is kind of more of a cartoony underwater, one that has a lot more color and kind of festive, a little bit of a tropical sound, very under the sea, you know? I always think of xylophone and especially marimba to achieve this. I decided I want to create the latter for this song, since I was in the mood to write something playful. So the first thing I did was write a reoccurring phrase for marimba. Once I liked it, I repeated it with a second marimba track an octave lower. For me, one marimba is water, but 2 octaves of marimba and it's underwater. Hopefully that makes a tiny bit of sense. As soon as those octaves come in, I'm immediately in underwater vibe mode. Have a listen and see if you agree. Ah yes, the vibes. We vibin', we chillin'. Throughout this song, I introduce a bunch more instruments and reoccurring motifs, even some that I wouldn't say are particularly aquatic sounding, like low brass, for example. However, by the end of the song, I hope to have a listener in the vibes enough that even having other elements will just sound like a natural evolution. Something else I wanted to note was having certain sounds tied to certain things. For example, have you ever noticed that every song I write that features one of my little characters will always have a particular instrument present? Even if an instrument may seem uncharacteristic for a mood, it shows the presence of a character or whatever else you tie it to. This can almost sort of chain together subconscious stories to the listener and creates very epic symbolism. Just another way for the vibes. So with all that in mind, here's what the finale of my underwater song sounds like. Are you vibing? I hope so, because I'll probably sound crazy otherwise. Okay, so everything I just talked about was kind of general, stuff that any listener can pick up on, overall vibes. But with a new song, I want to go one level deeper, incorporating the song's notation itself into the vibe. So it's time to get a little more technical. Songs are written in keys, yeah? Every key has its own variation of what's sharp and what's flat. For me, whenever I know I have to write in a particular mood, I have certain keys that I think work best for me. They just sound like that mood. They just work. In addition, I also have keys I reserve for certain themes or characters. Speaking of which, those same characters that each have their own instrument also have their own keys and ways I play intervals. To give a few examples of myself, I tend to write songs in F minor to be very charismatic, exciting, almost having this main character type energy to them. Think of it as a very Japanese style boss theme, very Toho. Whereas songs I write in G minor are most of my evil, serious, and fiery themes. These ones sound like classic film scores and have a lot of flair, and they're more like Western boss themes. However, I can achieve the same vibe with A major, but it really depends. In addition, E flat major or C minor is my go-to for anything jazz, and E minor is probably my most used key overall and just works for anything bombastic and heartfelt. Everyone's gonna have their own favored keys for different moods, but I find just having that already kinda sets you up to lock in the vibe. I'll just be playing around and come up with something I like, and it's like, oh, it's an A minor? Okay, time to add suspended chords and make it elegant. Having a key is one way to create a vibe, but the most crucial, I would say, would be the intervals in your phrases. And by that, I mean the distance between each note you're playing. The legends of the industry use this trick everywhere across all kinds of media, so let me explain. You can create another layer of storytelling with music. For example, if you want to do something heroic, go from the first note in your scale to the fifth. Very epic, as well as half a power chord. Want to show despair? Go down a half step from anywhere. Want to show some edge or diminish? Use a seventh. And it doesn't have to be a root note every time. Any note to any note with each distance can achieve that emotion. All of this can get you kind of knee-deep in intense theory pretty fast. So if that's not what you're looking for, I don't blame you, but you can just play, then count, then experiment. No worries. So all of this works because we like stories, and we have evolved to recognize patterns for stories everywhere. Remember that graph thing teachers always used to show you in elementary school, like how to write a story and like the hero's journey and stuff? Yeah, one of these. Music is the same way, and you can write notes just like strings of words. For example, you could start on your root note, or note 1, play a third as your hero is called to action, before ascending to a fifth as they combat whatever threat they might have. But they've got trials to overcome. They may fall, going down to a third or a fourth, overcoming challenges at a second before being reborn into a beautiful sixth. A final battle awaits, wills and powers clashing on the seventh and fifths with lots of epicness and tension, and finally, it all resolves back to a root note. So that might have just sounded insane, but it's everywhere, and these inner workings are often what make music sound like it just belongs with something, because it's telling a story in tandem with whatever it's accompanied with. The same story, even. It also helps that this graph also may resemble a song's structure. In the song I'm writing in the background here, I wanted something very epic and fiery, but also with a touch of darkness. Just a touch, though. So I started from my root note, ascended to a seventh, creating uncertainty, before quickly going back down to the fifth. This almost creates a moment of, oh no, will the hero betray us? Oh wait, no, never mind, we chill. From there, I dance around a bit on the fourth and the fifth, keeping things epic, before climbing down the scale to create tension that resolves back into a root note into the following phrase. And if I can get really technical for a sec, here are some emotions that I think work well with each note in a scale, so you can use this as a cheat sheet. Let's say C is our root note for the sake of simplicity. Playing a minor second will give you a very melancholy feeling, but also quite a bit of anguish and darkness. Perfect for evil trills and ostinatos. Next is a major second, which makes an excellent passing tone, or creating a sense of longing. The minor third is just straight up sadness, while the major third will sound the total opposite, giving you a very jolly vibe. A perfect fourth is triumphant, and I personally love it for recreating epic themes in a more emotional tone. A tritone is that really awkward one, but amazing for anything that needs a fear element or conveying tension, magic, or violence. The perfect fifth will give you that classic heroic sound, and is super stable. Definitely a go-to of mine. On the contrary, a minor sixth is the opposite, and will give you depression. More so than the minor third, in my opinion. However, the major sixth is a great way of giving an idea a very classical music touch, as well as sounding very romantic and sweet. Need a note for something unresolved or mourning vibes? Try a minor seventh. That's what I usually use for that diminished sound. Or try a major seventh for vibes of epic strength and aspiration. Perfect for build-ups. And finally is the octave, which sounds super powerful. I like to play parts, then repeat them with octaves to make them sound more interesting and full. So, as you can see, each note in a scale has its specialties, so you can use them to enhance your vibes, or find totally different ways to incorporate them, because you may hear all these and have totally different vibes of what I just said. No wrong answer. Do that a bunch, over lots of parts, and you get some really cool audio storytelling, like this. This stuff is everywhere, like freaking everywhere. Tons of movies and games incorporate this, whether the composer meant to go that deep or not. And by that, I mean that the classic hero's journey is so coded into us that we just kind of do this subconsciously because we think it fits. Do you think I sat there and planned out a bunch of numbers when I was writing my song here? Hell no. It just worked out that way because that's the vibe I wanted. And I can't help but wonder if every composer I look up to has that same experience. Or maybe they really do plan it out. Guess I'll have to get well known enough to ask them myself, won't I? Anyway, my point here is don't feel intimidated by numbers. The vibes are already inside you. Alright, so far we've talked about chill stuff like instrument choice, as well as some more technical stuff like intervals. But if you can't beat them, join them. So let's just try vibing out, which I'll show while I write a completely different song. I'll write something that's just all around vibey for this one, using lots of pianos and pads while keeping it slow. Tempo or speed of your song can also play an essential role in your vibes. Another awesome trick to set a vibe can be your choice of chords and chord progressions. For this one, I'm using some big chords with a couple ninths, which will make a really calm, smooth, somewhat jazzy sound. Ninths just have this really special sound to them, especially perfect for lo-fi or 90s jungle in my opinion. Have a listen. Ah, pure vibes. vibes, right? But for this song, I'm just gonna let the vibes take over and just improvise, which is what I always do, but sometimes you just gotta let the vibes carry you away. Listen. When you set the scene right, you'll just be in this sort of flow state, and you may find that everything you write might just work. I'm someone who cares a lot about writing music and making a story out of it, so it's easy for me to jump in and get invested. And I find the more you get yourself into it, you'll almost unlock levels of depth for how you write a mood. And yeah, it's really cool. Or, again, just write anything you want and put core after it. On multiple occasions when we'd be doing presentations in college, someone would play their track and it would just be explosive with sounds and sometimes noise. And I'd be kind of taken aback sometimes, like, what is this? Sound effect core? Construction site core? Getting PTSD from my old roommate's core? But I'd look around and all the bros are like, Bro, such a banger, dude. Fire, yo, dude, this is such a banger, this is straight fire, dude. Let me do a verse on this vibe, bro. And I'd be like, bruh, okay. Everyone's got their vibe, so we just gotta be creative and have fun. And voila, those are some ways on how I write to fit any theme, mood, or vibe I may need to. Throughout this video, I was trying to think of a good synonym for vibes, but none of them had, the vibes. So I hope some of my ideas could give you some ideas, and I hope you enjoyed watching this one. Cheers, guys!